This gospel passage I find really intriguing, because why would Jesus be saying this, that I haven't come to abolish the law and the prophets, unless people thought that's what he was doing? Right? You don't answer a question that isn't asked. And so, Jesus kind of turned things upside down, had a completely different perspective on the law and the prophets, I think, than what the people were used to. And so they thought that he was, therefore, just getting rid of the whole thing, right? But it kind of reminds me, in my own life, I have 2 sons, right? Well, when they were little, right, what our instruction to them, my wife and I, was a lot of, no, don't do that, don't do this, right? You want to grab the hot stove off the pan off the hot stove. No, don't do it. I want to run into the street. No, don't do it, right? And so you first teach children what not to do as you try to affirm what you should do. And that's kind of the story of salvation history also, right? You have the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. All of the shalt nots, right? But humanity was in its infancy, right? We were children in our relationship with God. And so that's kind of how God had to interact with us. Don't do that. That's going to cause damage. That's going to hurt you. Don't do that. It's going to hurt you. And as we grow, as my children grew, I'm able to expand a little bit on the don't do this, don't do that, right? That's what Jesus did. When he was asked, what is the greatest commandment? He said, love God with all your heart, all your soul, every fiber of your being. Love God. And love your neighbor as yourself. That is basically all of the commandments, right? Because when we love, then we don't kill, we don't steal, we don't commit adultery, we don't do all those things that God says don't do. Because when we come from a place of love, we don't harm others, right? And so that's what Jesus is doing, is fulfilling by moving from the negative to the positive, right? Where we can finally, I don't have to tell my kids, don't do this, don't do that. We can have a conversation about what we would like to do. That's what Jesus was doing. That's where we got in that salvation history, and that long storyline, that long story of the relationship between God and human beings, a story that we are still a part of. And yeah, sometimes I need to hear, don't do that, right? Still. Because we're still children, we're still God's children, but more often I can really conform my life to the positive, the love of God, the love of neighbor. And from that reality comes the way I live my life. It's really the same message, just with a different perspective.